transportation for the sports reporters provided by the Pan Am Shuttle. The Pan Am Shuttle offers convenient departures every hour on the half hour and superior service. The Pan Am Shuttle makes it easier on you.
The Bills were the first team to clinch a playoff spot this season, at home in Week 12. Today, Buffalo hosts its first playoff game since Mike Garrett and the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Bills on New Year's Day, 1967, for a berth in Super Bowl I. This season's Bills have their sights on Super Bowl 23 and feature the AFC's #1 defense. Meanwhile, Jerry Glanville's Houston Oilers feature their #1, Pro Bowl quarterback Warren Moon. All eyes will be on Bill Walsh and Joe Montana today, as the San Francisco 49ers hope to snap a 3-year playoff losing streak and avenge last season's divisional playoff loss to the Vikings. The Niners won this regular season's rematch with Minnesota when quarterback Steve Young rumbled 49 yards for the winning TD. Last Monday, the Vikings eliminated the LA Rams. Today, they look to do the same to the 49ers. Day 1 of 1989, Day 2 of the divisional playoffs, next on NFL Game Day. You're looking at Rich Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. The star football fans of Western New York flocking in to see their Buffalo Bills against the Houston Oilers. They scrape away the elements, but actually on the field at Rich Stadium today, seasonal, beautiful early January temperatures. Currently at 30 degrees, temperature in the 30s in Buffalo today, partly sunny. No snow, no rain, very little wind for today's AFC game between the Bills and the Oilers. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Chris Berman, along with Tom Jackson and Pete Axtell. Okay, we'll keep our voices down. People might have headaches. It is New Year's Day, and the playoffs continue. 2 pieces of the playoff puzzle have been put into place. We will discover 2 more today. Yesterday, the 2 home teams won ball games. At least we think they did, because in Chicago, nobody is sure who played. The game will be remembered throughout the ages as the Fog Bowl. The Eagles and the Bears. What could upstage Mike Ditka going up against his old defensive coordinator, Buddy Ryan? I'll tell you what could upstage it. The fog rolling in off Lake Michigan in the second quarter. Then in the second half, you could barely see what was going on. How did the players view it? How could they view it? What team's playing? Where are they? This is the same day. In the first quarter, Mike Tomczak, Dennis McKinnon, 3 minutes in, 64-yard touchdown pass, put the Bears in front to stay, even though the Eagles outgained them by over 100 yards. Later, Tomczak was hurt and replaced by McMahon. Randall Cunningham threw for over 400 yards, but he was picked off here by Bestie Jackson, and Chicago wins at 20-12 in the fog. At Cincinnati, Sam Weich's Bengals rolled to a 21-0 lead in the first half over Seattle, then held on. The Bengals, paced by Ickey Woods' 100-yard day, ran for 254 yards all told. Brown Chuck ran for only 18. It was the shuffle as Cincinnati beat Seattle 21-13. Today, frankly, we're expecting the best 2 games of the 4 this weekend. We begin in Buffalo, where the Bills look to regain their solid footing against the Houston Oilers, who've already won in the Great Lakes region in the playoffs, beating the Browns last weekend in Cleveland. Big question here is, can the Bills become the team that went 11-1 out of the gates, rather than the team that sputtered 1-3 down the stretch? No matter where the truth lies, you can't take away anything that this team has done. There are many heroes in Buffalo, but the unsung hero is general manager Bill Polian.
I think we've overachieved, to be quite honest with you. We, compared to some of the other teams in the playoffs, we're not quite the complete team I think that Houston is, nor are we quite the complete team that Cincinnati is.
But Bill Polian's Bills have just as much chance to get to the Super Bowl as the Oilers and Bengals, which is amazing when you consider that only 3 years ago they had registered their second straight 2-14 season. The changes come through many moves. Which stand out?
The acquisition of Jim Kelly had a psychological effect on the town and on the franchise. He was a talisman who had rejected Buffalo, and then finally came. And when he came, it was a public signal that the franchise had been rejuvenated. It didn't turn around on the field quite that quickly. But then, of course, the acquisition of Cornelius really solidified the defense, allowed Shane to move inside, where he's become a Pro Bowler, and gave Bruce a running mate on the outside so people couldn't double and triple team Bruce. And we really became a good defensive team after we acquired Cornelius.
When Bill Polian joined the Bills before his GM days back in 1984, he didn't need to be Albert Einstein to figure out that the Bills were paying a lot of bills, but they weren't getting their money's worth on the field.
When I came here in 1984, we had the fourth highest payroll in the league with a 2-14 record.
That's not good.
That's not good, no. That's why the job was open.
Yeah. That was good.
Polian became GM at the end of 1985. While he's quick to point out that his longtime associate Marv Levy deserves much of the credit for helping the young Bills grow up fast, his mark is indelible. Just this season, he drafted Thurman Thomas with his first pick, a second-round overall. He traded for veteran defensive end Art Still to solidify the run defense, and traded for strong safety Leonard Smith after the season was underway. True, all these picks weren't his alone, but of the 22 starters, 15 Bills are number ones and number twos. On defense, 6 starters are number one picks, a staggering amount. He's just following the advice of fellow GM Jim Finks, who gave him this plaque that he hangs on his office wall.
That little plaque up on the wall, which is an approximation of something Jim Finks said, that give everyone in the organization a target, build with an eye toward the future, minimize mistakes, be patient, don't look for the quick fix, and keep focused on the ultimate goal.
And now that ultimate goal is just 2 wins away, reaching the Super Bowl. As the Bills end a 22-year drought of home playoff games in about an hour, Polian will be a very interested observer in Rich Stadium.
The interesting part will be to see how we handle playing at the championship level. It's everyone's desire and everyone's dream in this league. You want to be here. And now that you're here, you want to see, it'll be interesting to see how we handle it.
Yes, it will, Bill. Yes, it will. Although the Bills will have to go today without Shane Conlon starting. They hope he can play some. Smirlis and Still will be back in there as starters, and that, of course, helps their defense. Tommy, only 8 guys on the Bills roster today have ever been in a playoff game. The guy with the most experience, Pete Metzelaars, who used to play for the Seahawks, that ought to tell you that they haven't been there too often.
I think the pressure that's on the Bills is similar to that was on the Eagles yesterday. They go in with little playoff experience. Of course, they're at home. That should loom as an advantage. But I think they have to get a performance today from Kelly to match Mr. Moon.
I think the defense will rise it up some. Axe, you'll be interested to know, remember the Ladd Herzog incident last year where he allegedly mooned a wedding party? They've changed hotels. It was the Ramada last year, was the Marriott last night. Although the Bills scheduled 8 wedding receptions and 4 bar mitzvahs there, nothing was reported. What else is going on with the Oilers?
But there's never a dull moment in the land of Glanville. Consider Jamie Williams, the tight end, caught his first pass in 9 games last week, promptly fell on the point of the ball and bruised his ribs. Let's hope it's not an omen for the Oilers, but there's no omens in Oiler land, you know?
No, never. This will be the first playoff game ever contested at Rich Stadium. You have to go back more than 2 decades to find a time when the Bills frolicked frequently in the postseason at War Memorial Stadium.
Sid Gilman's Chargers scored on their first possession, driving 80 yards in only 4 plays, capped off by this Tobin Road to Dave Kosorek 26-yard touchdown pass. But the game changed on the Chargers' second possession when Bills linebacker Mike Stratton knocked Chargers star running back Keith Lincoln out of the game. From then on, it was all Buffalo. Bills quarterback Jack Kemp led his team to a 20-7 win over the defending AFL champion Chargers, the first of 3 straight AFL championship game appearances for the Bills.
From now on, this is what dry is. Dry is a beer that starts bold from the first taste, finishes clean with no aftertaste, and refreshes completely. Dry is a beer called Michelob Dry. One taste, and you'll drink it dry. You might expect a guy who flies a jet like this to drive a jet like this, the Mazda MX-6 GT. If you also expect it to fly through the wide open spaces, you're right. But you probably don't expect to find all this wide open space inside. I guess that makes it the one sports coupe which flies in the face of convention. The Mazda MX-6 GT, a sports coupe the Mazda way.
In these days of self-serve gas stations, computerized banking, and understaffed stores, it seems that no one has the time for personal service anymore. Well, at True Value hardware stores, we haven't forgotten that we're working for you. And whenever you have a question or a problem with a do-it-yourself project, we'll do our very best to help. So the next time someone wonders where personal service has gone, you tell them it's still hard at work. Right in here. So make True Value hardware your store of first choice.
Is attracting everyone's attention. Gold Star. After all, when you pay attention to what people want, people pay attention to you. Gold Star, the brightest star in electronics.
NFL Game Day is being brought to you by new Michelob Dry. One taste and you'll drink it dry.
Well, many of the Houston Oilers are looking to fire their travel agent for booking them to a pair of weekends in Cleveland, then New Year's Day in Buffalo, possibly another weekend junket at Cincy. Quarterback Warren Moon doesn't mind the elements. In fact, he's used to winning big games in the cold. Now, as Jim Bergamo reports, he's looking to parlay his success in Canada into more of the same here in the States.
His quarterback rating is 88.4, third best in the AFC, fifth best in the NFL. He's thrown 17 touchdown passes to just 8 interceptions. These are just some of the numbers which indicate Warren Moon has indeed arrived as one of the NFL's best quarterbacks. At the Oilers training facility this week, opinions varied as to why their #1 signal caller had come of age.
Well, the reason I think Warren Moon has arrived is he's got some great people around him. I think the biggest thing is just the offensive philosophy that we have now. I mean, it's more designed around Warren instead of trying to fit Warren to some particular type of offensive scheme. They've actually tried to take his strengths and work around them.
Who's in charge? He knows what's going on. Before he was, I don't know. He was taking chances. Now he's the hammer, and the defense is the nail.
All of those answers are correct according to Moon, who survived a coaching change and who's finally run the same offense 2 seasons in a row for the first time in his 5-year NFL career.
It just took a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, and a lot of just holding to your guns. There was a lot of times you thought about just getting out of this situation. It wasn't a very happy situation for a few years there, but you have to never lose sight of your goals. And we set goals when we first came here, and now we're starting to achieve a lot of them.
One of those goals, quite naturally, is a Super Bowl victory. While the Oilers have never made it to the Super Bowl, Moon has been to the Canadian equivalent 5 times and has come away with 5 Grey Cup championships. Moon feels he can draw on that experience.
Oh, definitely so, especially psychologically. I think what it takes in a big game in order to win it, and hopefully I can rub some of that off in some of our younger players.
An interesting sidebar to today's game between the Oilers and the Bills is the matchup of quarterbacks between Warren Moon and Jim Kelly. They may be hundreds of miles apart now, but not too long ago, both played right here in Houston. And when they did, it was Jim Kelly who was the star, not Warren Moon. Kelly was the trigger man of the popular run-and-shoot offense of the Houston Gamblers, while Moon was often the fallen man in an Oilers offense in transition. But Moon told me he doesn't begrudge Kelly for his success with the Gamblers.
I knew what was happening in those days. The Gamblers were a different league. This is a National Football League, and we were a young football team at the time. And, we've just improved, and his team has improved too. And it'll be a good football game, and may the best team win.
If the best team is the one with the best quarterback, perhaps the best judge is June Jones, who now serves as Moon's mentor, but who was Kelly's guru with the Gamblers.
They're both great leaders, but leaders in different ways, and, of course, both have great physical attributes. And I would love to line up with either one of those guys on a daily basis.
Oilers head coach Jerry Glanville has made it quite clear who he wants to line up with. Recently, Glanville called Moon the best quarterback in the NFL. If Glanville's right, there could very well be a Moon over Miami come Super Bowl 23. In Houston, Texas, I'm Jim Bergamo for NFL Game Day.
All right, Jim, thank you. We do know there'll be a Moon in Honolulu because Warren Moon, one of the quarterbacks for the AFC in the Pro Bowl. Still to come on this morning edition of Game Day. The late game preview, the 49ers and the Vikings from Candlestick Park in San Francisco, where the weather un-California-like, chilly, mid-40s. Can the Vikings play in such cold, partly cloudy skies? No precip. Wind from the northeast, not much. Will the fog roll in? We'll be back.
Imagine one cable channel with 3 kinds of programming. It would have something for kids.
Come on, Jerry, get up. Is it time for Mickey? This music show is so hot. Yeah, it's awesome.
There would be some things for the whole family.
This is my favorite show. I thought you didn't like adventures. She likes this one. What's on TV, Dad?
There's a great special on the Disney Channel.
I want to watch.
Me too.
And some things just for you.
That movie you've wanted to see is on tonight.
Great. I'll make the popcorn. There is one channel that offers so much entertainment. It's like getting 3 channels in one. The Disney Channel, America's family network.
New Year's Day, see the Georgia Bulldogs unleash their offensive attack against the heavily armed Michigan State Spartans. It's the only bowl game on New Year's Day. The Mazda Gator Bowl, live on ESPN.
The real marquee game of the weekend is today's Left Coaster, a playoff rematch of a year ago between the Minnesota Vikings and San Francisco 49ers. Once again, the Vikes are the wild card team trying to unseat a divisional champ in their stadium. But after Minnesota's 36-24 shock over a year ago, focusing will not be a problem this time in San Francisco. After all, that loss was one of the darkest days in Niners history. Probably the worst money game ever played by the money man, Joe Montana. Tommy, you were in San Francisco this week, and how'd you find the Niners?
Well, as the Minnesota Vikings move into Candlestick Park today, they are judged by many to be the best team in the NFC. That's a label that the 49ers carried into the playoffs last year, but as we've seen, some strange things can happen on the way to the Super Bowl. It was Anthony Carter's 10 receptions for a playoff record 227 yards and an ineffective Joe Montana that gave Minnesota the 36-24 win. Last year's upset playoff loss to the Minnesota Vikings sent shockwaves throughout the San Francisco Bay Area, the aftershocks of which were felt well into the '88 season. But as the 49ers begin their rush toward Super Bowl 23, they've changed not only their expectations, but their preparations.
We've concentrated more on this team and not worried so much about the Minnesota team. I think what happened last year is we prepared for the Chicago game, and then all of a sudden here Minnesota was on us, and we started trying to prepare for them, and you just can't do that. You have to worry about your team and worry about how your team can play.
The 49ers have not played well in their last 3 playoff games, losing all 3. And this year's team has been in transition all season. Earlier this year, the Niners won the rematch thanks to Steve Young's TD scramble in the 4th quarter. Today, even though San Francisco is favored, they are well aware of Minnesota's potential.
There's nothing wrong with being a little afraid. I feel like you play your best football. And Minnesota, they beat the Rams last week. They played excellent football. And for me, I'm a little afraid, and I feel like I'm going to go out and play my best football.
Last year, as I said, I think we felt fortunate to have been there. This year, we feel we belong being here. We don't feel that, even though we did arrive as a wild card, I think that people recognize us as a definite possibility that we could advance to the Super Bowl.
On Tuesday, the 49ers had a team meeting with no coaches present. The point was to keep the young players focused and, unlike '87, keep everyone on the same path.
Probably the biggest game of our careers, and you don't want to blow it right now. We're in an elite type of group of teams right now, of getting a chance to go to the Super Bowl, so you don't have time to be messing around and blow this opportunity.
The Vikings defense leads the NFC against the pass. The pressure they apply on a quarterback all begins with their tremendous front line.
Anthony Carter can look as good as you want. Jerry Rice can look as good as he wants. Roger Craig can step as high as he wants. But if the guys up front, specifically our offensive line, aren't working well, then we can just kind of plan what we're going to do for New Year's Day.
We've got a few new wrinkles for Roger Craig. Obviously, he's a big part of their offense. So we're going to key on trying to take him and Montana and Rice out of their offense. And if we can do that, we feel like we can have a good day against them.
Although there's always pressure on the quarterback, Joe Montana has to feel some extra heat with last year's loss and the fact that he did not even dress for this year's regular season game against the Vikes. Joe is looking to silence his critics.
I haven't played well the last 2 times in the playoffs, so I'm looking forward to, showing that it isn't over.
That's one of the intangibles that was obvious in San Francisco. There's a little bit of extra pressure on Joe Montana. I think he's going into this game wondering, what happens if I have a bad first quarter?
Well, there is pressure on him, and a little history note, which I'm sure he knows very well, is you have to go back to Stanford, the Palo Alto Super Bowl victory over Miami, for the last time the 49ers, with Montana playing, scored an offensive touchdown. Not a good stat.
But until the Bears won yesterday, you had to go all the way back to the '82 Redskins to find a Super Bowl champion that has won a playoff game since. So maybe the tide will turn. We shall see. 49ers and Vikings playoff paths have crossed before. We're not talking only last year. Can you remember 18 seasons ago?
Single-digit temperatures in a frozen Metropolitan Stadium had the 49ers and Vikings wary of turnovers. San Francisco running back Ken Willard's fumble resulted in the game's first score, as Viking safety Paul Krause picked up the loose ball and raced 22 yards to the end zone and a 7-0 lead. San Francisco rallied back behind quarterback John Brody, tying the game at 7 on this 24-yard TD pass to Dick Witcher. Late in the fourth quarter, Brody added this 1-yard quarterback sneak for a 17-14 Niners win and a berth in the NFC title game.
Mazda's got a brand new vehicle that's as unique and special and friendly as the family dog. It's the all-new Mazda MPV. It carries 7 like a wagon, it's versatile like a van, and with its responsive V6, it performs like a Mazda. If Mazda's MPV sounds like something that's never been before, you're right. About the only thing it won't do is get your paper in the morning. The all-new Mazda MPV. Family transportation, the Mazda way.
According to a national survey, employers are looking for people who can handle heavy responsibilities. People with the ability to overcome obstacles, perform under pressure, and work well with others. Men and women with the pride and self-discipline it takes to reach new heights. Which is why some of the most successful people in the white-collar world start off green.
No longer can you make the joke that Pete Axtell in the playoff is like the Rams in the 80s, because unlike the Rams, Pete won a game yesterday with Cincinnati. You're on a roll. Go get him.
Well, it's more of a bagel, but we'll try to get it going. The Vikings at the Niners, I like the Vikings in this game. They lost the championship game last year, and 3 of the last 4 NFC championship game losers have gone to the Super Bowl and won it, as a matter of fact. Vikings are also 8-0 as road underdogs on grass. I'm taking the Vikings plus 3.5 against the Niners. Oilers at the Bills. The AFC wildcard winner in history has been 6-3 over the years the next week. The Bills are only 2-2 against playoff teams, and I think we need my cult hero in Miami, so I'm taking the Oilers plus 3.5 over the Bills. Finally, on a serious note, an item this week, Sam Weich mentioned that his increasing speaking engagements with the Bengals' success, he's giving the fees to the homeless. I've had a well-known stormy relationship with Sam, but I want to, A, applaud that, and B, Sam, if you want to knock me to get more speaking engagements, if that entertains anybody, feel free. I applaud it.
All right, Pete, that's a nice New Year's gesture for sure. You've grown accustomed to, I'm all choked up over that, accustomed to some of Axe's stats through the years. Why stop now? Just because the calendar has changed in 1989 and hosts can't speak.
Tight end Carl Hilton has certainly been a good luck charm for the Vikings. Hilton has a total of 5 career receptions, and all 5 have gone for touchdowns, including this one against the Rams last week. The Vikings have been the NFL's biggest thieves, leading the league with 53 takeaways during the regular season, while today's opponent, the 49ers, were tied for the fewest turnovers committed with 26. Today's NFC game also pits the best offense in the conference, the Niners, against the NFC's top defense. Minnesota's defense ranks number 1 in yards allowed, touchdowns allowed, and interceptions, while the Niners are tops in yards gained and fewest INT. The Bills' defense is number 1 in the AFC, but they haven't had an interception since Week 11, when they picked off Dan Marino and the Dolphins 3 times. What about the sideline matchup in today's AFC game? Houston's Jerry Glanville is 2-1 lifetime in postseason, while surprisingly, Buffalo's Marv Levy coaches his first ever NFL playoff game today.
You know, if I've discovered one thing from driving this new Mazda 929, it's this. Not only does it measure up to the great cars of the world with its luxury and quiet, it more than measures up when you introduce it to your favorite piece of road. The new Mazda 929, a high-performance luxury sedan, the Mazda way.
For years, you've seen some commercials where one battery outlasts the others, so you may have assumed their battery outlasts even Energizer. Fact is, Energizer was never invited to their playoffs, and today's Energizer won't be invited either. Why? Because no battery lasts longer than Energizer. So now you know. A word to the wise. Energize.
Watch 2 of the best football teams ever. ESPN's all-pro team of Mike Patrick and Joe Theismann bring you the head-to-head action of the 1989 Pro Bowl. Sunday, January 29th, live on ESPN.
NFL Game Day has been brought to you by Mazda Cars and Trucks, including the all-new Mazda MPV.
The city of Buffalo continues to take its lumps, by the snow literally and from plenty of other sources figuratively. Our Jimmy Roberts shuffled off to Buffalo and found that the smashing success of the Bills this season was translated into lots more than just proud football fans.
Kick is good, and the Bills are champions of the AFC East.
It was both a beginning and an end. The beginning of a quest for a Super Bowl. The end of a long climb back to respectability for both city and team. Because Buffalo, it seems, has always been an easy mark.
Well, hi, everybody. Here we are in Buffalo, New York. Anyone here from Buffalo? Yeah? Anyone here from normal parents? You got your change of seasons here, you know? You got winter, of course, and then you have the 4th of July. So that's kind of nice.
At times, it was comical. A city often besieged by snow in the winter, and a bad football team who could barely half fill their stadium. But what was happening to the people was no joke.
10 years ago, Buffalo was just another word for economic despair. In 1983, when this Bethlehem steel plant finally closed its doors, 18,000 people went home with no job. Citywide, unemployment was running rampant at almost 14%, and the population base of Buffalo was shrinking rapidly. Coincidentally, the next year, the Bills were 2-14. So the stage was set for one of the most dramatic comebacks of both a city and its football team.
America, welcome to Buffalo. An influx of federal and state money is helping Buffalo to start to come in from the cold. A redeveloped waterfront, a new subway, and a gleaming new stadium in which the AAA Bisons play. Meanwhile, the Bills brought in Marv Levy, some young aggressive talent, and this year set a record for attendance.
You know, it's kind of the way the Bills go is the way the city goes a little bit, and in the past few years it's been depressed, and now Buffalo itself is making a comeback economically.
A comeback to which the football team is apparently making a contribution.
In November.
Help our kids escaping drugs. Call 852-KIDS.
This is the NBC Television Network.
Glimpses of yesterday as the Bengals beat the Seahawks and secured home field for next week's AFC title game. Now Cincinnati awaits the arrival of today's winner. It's the first playoff game in Buffalo in exactly 22 years. Then it was Hank Stram's Chiefs against Joe Collier's Bills for the AFL title and a berth in the first Super Bowl. The Chiefs led 7-0 when Jack Kemp went to the air and found Elbert Golden Wheels Dubenion for a 69-yard game-tying touchdown. It gave Hank Stram momentary cause for concern, but just momentarily. Len Dawson, Mike Garrett, and Otis Taylor were among the stars. The Bills bowed to the Chiefs 31-7. That was then. This is now. The Bills are champs of the AFC East, and after a first-round bye, this football-mad city prepares to greet the wild card winners. Each team led by a man with a zigzagging pro football pass. Warren Moon to the Oilers by way of the Canadian League. Jim Kelly out of the USFL to lead the Bills. They grab the headlines, but two of the most physical teams in the league prepare to decide this